Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment of the podcast is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. For over 50 years, the Great Heritage Foundation has been America's outpost in Washington, fighting against the D.C. federal bureaucracy and working to secure a future that allows Americans to live the good life. For too long, common sense principles have been ignored by many of the very leaders claiming to fight for America. But the Heritage Foundation is proud to hold our leaders accountable and stand up for America's founding principles. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Man, do we have a lot to do. All I think you'll find compelling and important. This guy, Zohran Mamdani, is that it, Mr. Producer? I got to make sure I learn how to pronounce his name. He's got the Democrat nomination. He is a Islamist, who embraces the terror slogan of Hamas. But he doesn't mean to. Who embraces BDS. But he doesn't mean to. He's a full-scale anti-Semite. But he denies it. We're going to get into him, trust me on this. Because if he gets elected, you can say goodbye to New York City, the greatest city in America. It is. I'm a Philadelphian, but we know what's what. So we have to fight this. And can you imagine all the good people leaving New York? And then the certain people who flock into New York again. I'm not talking about Muslims. I'm talking about radical Islamists like the kinds you've seen at Columbia and NYU and all the rest of it. And the media will say, well, that's bigoted. That's not bigoted. I didn't attack Muslims. I attacked the Islamists. But we don't really give a damn what the left thinks. They're destroying our country. But here's the deal, folks. I've been behind this microphone almost 25 years. And I learned from the greatest, Rush Limbaugh. He was a close friend of mine, as is my brother, Sean Hannity. And there are other great people in this business, too. But I've told you many times, Rush Limbaugh always said, respect your audience. He loved his audience. You, my wonderful audience, he loved you, as I do. But it's important that some policing goes on, that there's some integrity in people who come to conservatives, hardworking men and women, middle class, blue collar, who come to them and lie to them, lie to you, my people and my audience, lie to Rush's old audience or Hannity's audience, lie to Republicans and conservatives and MAGA. Just lie. They conceal who they are. They deceive who they are. I've spent weeks now exposing Chatsworth Carlson. He's a snake. He's a fraud. He's a phony. I have not spent enough time on a true fraudster, Steve Bannon. He's a con man. He's a con artist. You need to know about this man. The media love him. Why? Because he's a leaker. He leaked against President Trump. He leaked against his family when he was at the White House. One of the reasons they kicked his considerable ass out of there is because he's a leaker. They leaked to the left-wing media, as Carlson did and does. That was exposed. Carlson has article after article, text after text, smearing Donald Trump. Not just policy, no, just attacking him as a human being. And Bannon has done the same thing. And it all came to a head now when the president decided, I've got to take out these nuclear sites in Iran. Because, you see, these guys are invested in with newsletters and platforms and God knows what. They're grifters. That's the bottom line. Like Rush used to say, follow the money. Defending Qatar, defending Iran. I don't even think they're really isolationists. I think they embrace our enemies, that they're thoroughly un-American. What explains their conduct? They accused Trump of starting World War III or going to start World War III in complicity in the lead up to a military operation against the enemy. That's not what red-blooded Americans think. That's not what patriotic Americans think. Now, I want you to listen to this. You draw your own conclusions. The Wrap. Steve Bannon pleads guilty in scheme to steal $15 million from border wall donors. That's you. You. You were the mark. Steve Bannon, a longtime Trump ally and former chief strategist, avoided jail time by pleading guilty Tuesday. This is February 2025. This is a few months ago. To defrauding donors who thought their money was being used to help build a wall at the southern border of the United States. You were the target. Bannon was charged with 5 felony counts and faced up to 15 years in prison. The guilty plea filed in New York criminal court allows Bannon to avoid jail time as long as he does not commit any more crimes. Wow. And the plea comes with a 3-year conditional discharge and waives his right to appeal. Bannon is not required to pay restitution. He was indicted in 2022 on state charges, including money laundering, conspiracy, and fraud, after creating an online fundraising campaign titled We Build the Wall. The donations were promoted to be used to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. According to reports, Bannon and his partners raised over $15 million. I'm just reading the news. I started looking at this. It was unbelievable. This is the least of it. There's more. This was not the first time Bannon was charged with a defrauding scheme. He was charged in 2020 by federal prosecutors in a different case. However, he was pardoned by Donald Trump during the final hours of his first term. The same Donald Trump who he stabs in the back. Think about that. Politico. Bannon ally Chinese billionaire arrested on fraud charges. How many of you know Chinese billionaires who are arrested on fraud charges? This guy presents himself as the everyday American. Federal prosecutors in New York arrested exiled Chinese billionaire and Steve Bannon ally Wen Guo Wednesday morning, this is 2023, on charges that he and his financier orchestrated a more than $1 billion fraud scheme aimed at Gao's hundreds of thousands of online followers. Gao also goes by the name of Miles Kwok, and his financier were charged in a 12-count indictment with wire fraud, securities fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, and it goes on. In 2020, Bannon was arrested on federal fraud charges while aboard the guy's yacht. Bannon pleaded not guilty, was subsequently pardoned on those charges by former President Donald Trump. I don't know all the ins and outs of this. The article goes on and on and on, but he needed a pardon? So let's just sum this up. The guy gets a pardon on federal charges. The guy pleads guilty to state charges of ripping off average Americans who think they're donating for a wall. Pretty heavy, don't you think? And here's the New York Post. 2021. Trump pardons former White House strategist Steve Bannon. President Trump on Tuesday night pardoned former campaign aide and White House strategist. And of course, Trump fired him from the White House because he wouldn't stop leaking on his coworkers, apparently like Jared Kushner. And then some guy writes a book, I think his name was Wolf, and he basically accuses Don Jr. of treason. And that was it for Trump. He kicked his fat ass out of the White House. Now, this guy, by the way, has called for the investigation and deportation of Elon Musk. He's called for the investigation of Kayleigh McEnany, Sean Hannity, the Murdochs, and me, meaning he wants us prosecuted and thrown in prison because we support Israel. This guy said today that Israel's not our ally, that we should drop Israel. So like Carlson, they side with the enemy. And they're incessant leakers, like Carlson. They condemn the left-wing media. They are the left-wing media. They work with the left-wing media. Says here, New York Post, Bannon was accused of scamming $1 million from donors to the We Build the Wall GoFundMe campaign launched by U.S. Air Force veteran Brian Kolfage, who lost 3 limbs. This is horrible. Horrible. There seems to be no line this guy won't cross. But this scam was obviously aimed at you. He was busted in August aboard the Lady May, a $28 million yacht owned by a Chinese billionaire. I mentioned him before. Bannon's pardon was among a wave of last-minute clemencies the White House was expected to announce ahead of the Biden inauguration. Well, he got it. He got it. It goes on. There's many more details here. We're not going to spend all day on this, but I feel I have a public service responsibility as a Trump supporter, as a MAGA supporter, as a conservative, as a radio host who has spent decades trying to build this movement. You know, Bill Buckley through the John Birch Society out of the conservative movement. These people are not MAGA. They are fake MAGA. They have latched onto this. They're grifters. That's what they are. I know you've heard of them. I know you thought good of them. They're no good. Now, they can come back with all the names and smears, and I'm a Jew, and, you know, Tel Aviv and all that. I don't mind Tel Aviv, Mark. Because I don't hate Israel. But here's the thing, Bannon. You're always going to be a fraud for the rest of your life. That's your legacy. You're a crook. You confess to it to keep your fat ass out of prison. That's what you did. I've never been on a boat with a Chinese billionaire who's charged with crimes either. I've never needed a pardon from President Trump either. There was a great piece written, wish I'd known about it earlier, in The Hill by somebody named John McGillian. Steve Bannon wants you to believe he's a war general for the forgotten man, a blue-collar prophet in cargo pants, ready to torch the global elites on behalf of truckers and farmers. But strip away the flannel and fury, and what you'll find isn't a populist. It's a financier, a Hollywood operator, a man worth $20 million, LARPing as a cold-dusted crusader for the common man. This is the hustle. Bannon talks like a patriot but lives like a prince. He rails against the globalists while building his own global network. He warns you about the machine even as he becomes a vital gear in it. Let's rewind. Before Breitbart, before the War Room podcast, which should be called the Fraud Room, before the MAGA movement and talk of deconstructing the administrative state, Bannon was something far less revolutionary, a banker. And not just any banker. He was a high-powered executive at Goldman Sachs, the very temple of global finance he now pretends to rage against. He didn't walk picket lines. He walked into boardrooms. He advised mergers and helped move capital around like puzzle pieces in the portfolios of the powerful. He got in on the deals most Americans would never even hear about, let alone benefit from. One of those deals, Seinfeld. After leaving Goldman, he began his own firm and worked with Westinghouse to successfully acquire a minority stake in Castle Rock Entertainment, the producer of Seinfeld. As part of that deal, Bannon accepted a stake in the royalties of the show. Holy mackerel. So why do you have to defraud people? Isn't that enough? Translation, every time you laughed at Kramer's entrance, Bannon got richer. While working-class Americans were juggling bills and wondering if they could afford another tank of gas, Bannon was cashing passive income from a sitcom about nothing. And when that well started to run dry, he pivoted to image. He went Hollywood. He did not go as a writer or director, but as a producer, the shadowy figure behind the scenes, raising money, shaping narratives, angling for influence. He produced a slate of forgettable documentaries with big ambitions and little reach, hoping to strike gold or at least strike a nerve. He sniffed around the Vanity Fair circuit, elbowed his way through the fringes of Los Angeles power lunch culture, tried to matter in rooms where creative types mingled with capital, but it didn't stick. He was too blunt, too ideological, too out of place. So he rebranded. When the red carpet didn't welcome, he found an alternative stage. He embraced Carhartt cosplay, grew out the hair, declared himself a champion of the people. But make no mistake, he never stopped living like royalty. His personal life was padded by old Goldman money. The bank account never left Bel Air. The Rolex never came off. He wasn't just out of touch with the working class. He was orbiting them from space, occasionally parachuting down to give a speech about sovereignty and struggle, then retreating back to his fortified compound of fine scotch. Deceit and duplicity aren't bugs in Bannon's matrix. They're part of the operating system. I'm going to take a break and finish the article, and then we're going to move on. But you need to know. You need to know who this fraudster is, who these grifters are, and how they operate. They are the establishment. They are the establishment. And they've been undermining President Trump's administration left and right. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
President Trump is in Washington with a mandate from the American people to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Bidenflation, and restore American greatness. But since January 20, judges across our country have consistently been blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been analyzing the situation, and they've been able to identify the legal issues with these judges' actions, as well as the solutions that can end this potential crisis. Now, to see the results of the Heritage's analysis for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. There you'll gain exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of limiting President Trump's executive actions. Stopping these judges might be the only way to protect Americans and take back our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, that's heritage.org/Levin, and get your free copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. These people have absolutely nothing in common with you. They talk about the common man, and they're utterly uncommon. They view you as a mark, as targets. They're demagogues, they're propagandists. Nobody wanted to stand up to them. I had people coming to me, what do we do about this? What do we do about this? Finally, I said, I'll tell you, I'll do something about it. I'm not going to allow the millions and millions of people, conservative patriots, Tea Party, Reagan Revolution, Trump Revolution, MAGA, whatever, fall victim to these grifters. I'm not going to allow it. Now, I've posted plenty. You're welcome to read it or not. But you need to be very careful what you're dealing with here. They're sinister, and they're out for themselves. I'm going to finish with Bannon when we return, and then we're going to move on. We'll be right back. Are you concerned about the rising number of judges who've been limiting President Trump's executive orders? Now, if you're not concerned yet, you should be. When these judges use injunctions to block President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate from the American people, it is we, the people, who lose out. Thankfully, the Heritage Foundation has the policy solutions to stop these threats to our judicial system. So go to heritage.org and get your free copy of the How to Stop Activist Judges ebook. This resource explains exactly what these judges are doing, why it matters, and how under the Constitution they can be stopped. President Trump's agenda is in danger, but even more importantly, the safety of Americans and the future of our nation could be at stake. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your free ebook today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, tough as hell.
That's why I like Mark Levin. And I'm not sure a lot of people like him. He's tough as hell. But I like him. I love him.
Call in now. 877-381-3811.
Let me finish with this article on Bannon. Throw him out with the rest of the garbage. And I've done my job. I believe my job is to serve my audience, you. And to alert you and so many Americans who work hard about what's going on here. You know, this guy, Tarleton, among other things, he's a trust fund baby with the Swanson frozen food family. I don't hold that against him. I really don't. But he ought to stop pretending he's a common man, a blue-collar guy when he was born with a platinum spoon up in his mouth. And same with Fat Boy here, the Rosie O'Donnell look-alike. And so this gentleman writes, Jack McGillian, a writer and researcher who explores culture, society, and the impact of technology on daily life, at the Wrap. Take the infamous Build the Wall scheme, for example. Bannon raised millions of dollars from ordinary Americans, promising every penny would go to the wall. Trump couldn't finish, he said. And what happened? The money vanished into private pockets, luxury expenses, personal salaries. Bannon was arrested on a Chinese billionaire yacht, lounging in luxury while federal agents boarded. He was spared only by a last-minute Trump pardon, yet somehow that only added to his legend. Then came the supergroup pitch, a global nationalist alliance, conferences in Hungary, meetings in Rome, and whispered influence over several European populists. Bannon wasn't interested in saving Main Street. He was franchising the culture war, exporting MAGA aesthetics to every corner of the globe, not because he believed in the cause, but because there's always a market for outrage. This is not the story of a man who joined the people. It's the story of a man who studied them, branded them, and built a media empire on their backs. He frames everything as a spiritual battle, America versus the elites, but Bannon is the elite. He just speaks rage fluently. So here's the question. If a man tells you he's at war with the empire while still cashing royalty checks from it, do you believe him? Or do you finally see it for what it is? Asked the writer. Bannon is not a warrior for the working man. He's a salesman in battle gear with a podcast mic and a passport full of donor meetings. He doesn't live among the people. He studies them, scripts their anger, sells it back to them. He rebranded himself so many times. This reminds me of Tarleton, rebranding himself so many times. He's rebranded himself so many times, the gentleman writes, naval officer, investment banker, Hollywood producer, political strategist. You'd think he was running a hedge fund in identity. And in a way, he is each persona, carefully tailored to meet the moment, each pivot engineered for maximum leverage. The flannel, the Catholic mysticism, the bunker aesthetic. It's all part of the shameless act. Underneath is a Machiavellian tactician who understands power not as something to dismantle, but to inhabit. Part P.T. Barnum, part Pat Buchanan. This is a man who preaches humility while flying private. Steve Bannon isn't leading a rebellion, he is selling one. You can look all this stuff up yourself, folks. The charges, the guilty pleas, the pardon, the money, the charity. It's all there. And what will happen tonight or tomorrow is you will see about 6 or 12 articles by the entrail press with headlines trying to tell you that this is a battle within MAGA. This is a civil war within MAGA. A battle. That this is Levin versus this one, or Levin is none of that. It is none of that. I came to the defense of the president. I came to the defense of the American Armed Forces. That's what I do. I came to the defense of freedom for our country and our allies in Israel who were under attack. That's all I did. And so the flack came in from these guys. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit still like everybody else when these thugs gather. They gather in a group. That's what they do. They interview each other. They promote each other. They write about each other because they have to protect what they have. 94% of Republican MAGA supported what Donald Trump did. Not one of these guys did. Not one. They warned you about World War III. They warned you about the Jews dragging us into another war. They warned you about the price of fuel going to $30 a gallon when it actually fell. Everything they said, all their fear-mongering proven wrong. And you know what? I hate to say this. They're sitting on the edge of their chairs. If something happens, they want to attack Trump and me and the people who spoke out. And basically what they're attacking is the United States military. The United States military. Which they trash all the time. All the time. Here's the deal. The good guys won. Our armed forces won. Our great commander-in-chief, brilliant, won. Our great allies, the Israelis. Our great friend, Prime Minister Netanyahu, they won. The allies won. You won. We won. The truth has been exposed. These guys have been exposed. All of them. It's out there to read. You can read it or not. These are facts. Facts. Read it or not. Don't worry about the names they used. Sloganeers. Isolationists are sloganeers. That's what they're. Marxists are sloganeers. Islamists are sloganeers. White supremacists are sloganeers. The Black Panthers are sloganeers. That's the genre in which these guys swim. It's the sewer. And I regret having to go into the sewer to deal with these guys, but that's where they are. They're sewer rats. And you got to go into the sewer to deal with them. The problem is, I can climb out. They can't. That's their habitat. That's what they do. They're not MAGA. They're not Reagan conservatives. They're not Trump conservatives. They're not patriots. They're a disgrace. No, the president isn't complicit in starting World War III, you jackass Carlson. No, the president didn't turn his back on MAGA. Fat boy, you fraudster. And I can go right down the list. These are the little niches they've carved out for themselves. Celebrate what we did to a tyrannical regime that has killed thousands and maimed thousands of Americans. Celebrate it. Not one of our military was harmed. Not one of our bombers was touched. Celebrate it. We won. We won. Isn't that good? It's great. And remember who was rooting for the enemy. Remember who was rooting for the enemy. They were. That's not America first. That is disgusting. I want to read one other thing to you about our great president. And he is great. Doesn't mean you always have to agree with him, but you should never sabotage him and stab him in the back and call him the things that Carlson has called him, done to him what Bannon did to him when he took him into his confidence and brought him into the White House and he's leaking left and right. Pardon the fat ass. And even up to this point, stabs him in the back in the lead up to war. Donald Trump just posted this. Breaking news. I was shocked to hear that the state of Israel, which has just had one of its greatest moments in history and is strongly led by Bibi Netanyahu, is continuing its ridiculous witch hunt against their great wartime Prime Minister Bibi. And I just went through hell together, fighting a very tough and brilliant longtime enemy of Israel, Iran. And Bibi could not have been better, sharper, or stronger in his love for the incredible Holy Land. Anybody else would have suffered losses, embarrassment, and chaos. Bibi Netanyahu was a warrior, like perhaps no other warrior in the history of Israel. And the result was something that nobody thought fought harder or more competently than Bibi Netanyahu. Despite all of this, I just learned that Bibi has been summoned to court on Monday for the continuation of his long running. He has been going through this horror show since May 2020, unheard of. This is the first time a sitting Israeli prime minister has ever been on trial. This long-running, politically motivated case concerning cigars, a Bugs Bunny doll, and numerous other unfair charges in order to do him great harm. Such a witch hunt for a man who has given so much is unthinkable to me. He deserves much better than this, and so does the state of Israel. Bibi Netanyahu's trial should be canceled immediately, or a pardon given to a great hero who has done so much for the state. Perhaps there is no one that I know who could have worked in better harmony with the President of the United States, me, than Bibi Netanyahu. It was the United States of America that saved Israel, and now it's going to be the United States of America that saves Bibi Netanyahu. This travesty of justice cannot be allowed. Capitals, exclamation mark. You know what Bannon said today? He trashed Netanyahu, said he was trying to drag us into a war, that we should drop Israel, that Israel's not our ally. Does that sound right to you, America? These bigoted pigs are disgusting. They don't represent you and me. When I was a young man, I admired Ronald Reagan. And we fought like hell to get him the nomination, and they tried to block him repeatedly. And over Donald Trump's left shoulder in the Oval Office is the official portrait of Ronald Reagan. He's a great admirer of Ronald Reagan, as I've come to learn. And I will tell you one other thing, and then we'll move on. When I met with President Trump on June 4th, I wasn't seeking a pardon. I didn't have to apologize for anything. He asked me to come meet with him. He'd asked me weeks before to come to dinner with my wife and him. I couldn't make it work because I want to stay on radio, TV, and do what I need to do. I told him I have to go to Florida. I go to Florida for several reasons, one of which is I have a very ailing older brother. I told him I can't. He said, well, look, Mark, as soon as you get back, contact me first. I want to get you in here. That's how that meeting occurred. I'm not going to get into the specifics. He was very inquisitive. He inquired of my views. And let me just put it this way. Everything you hear me say, everything, I'm consistent in private and public. I said to Mr. President, I'm being accused of leading a lobbying campaign of warmongers. And he laughed because he knows it's a lie. He said, Mark, if I want to know what your views are, you know what I do? I said, what, sir? I watch your Fox TV shows. 99% of what I know about your views, I watch on television with everybody else. You see, folks, the man has integrity. I like to think I have integrity. The people I've been talking to you about have no integrity. They're operators. They're looking for an angle. You'll notice at the inauguration, my wife and I, and he loves my wife even more than me. And he loves her because she's a great patriot, and she came to his defense and brought two serious matters in front of the Supreme Court. Not the other arguments, real matters involving the authority of states and the authority of states in federal elections. And the court almost took a look at both those cases, but apparently they couldn't get 4 justices. Word is they got 3. And he always thanked her for that. All these people say, Mark is never a Trumper. One day, because of Roger Stone, who I've come to like. I don't know him, but I like the guy. He's a fighter. I've been wrong about him. I think he's been wrong about me. It doesn't matter. When that SWAT team showed up at his house, it changed everything for me. Nobody should be treated like that. And I said, he said something, I said, I don't remember what it is. I said, you know what, from here forward, I'm a never Trumper. And I've explained this story many times, but it doesn't seem to matter. Donald Trump picked up the phone and he said, Roger's a dear friend, but he doesn't speak for me. Not in this. And I went on the air and I explained that call. Did I not, Mr. Producer? That's my great never Trumper. I fought harder in defense of Donald Trump when he's been under attack criminally and civilly in 5 different jurisdictions. And he will be attacked again. And I will be loyal to him because he loves this country. He's done so much good for this country. Look what he's done to Iran that no other president would do or could do. And I will defend him, including against Carlson, Bannon, Gates, Green with an E, the rest of these bastards. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
President Trump is in Washington with a mandate from the American people to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Bidenflation, and restore American greatness. But since January 20, judges across our country have consistently been blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill his mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been analyzing the situation, and they've been able to identify the legal issues with these judges' actions, as well as the solutions that can end this potential crisis. Now, to see the results of the Heritage's analysis for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. There you'll gain exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of limiting President Trump's executive actions. Stopping these judges might be the only way to protect Americans and take back our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, that's heritage.org/Levin, and get your free copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. So, America, we declare victory. And we move on. Unless I decide not to move on. We'll see. But I think they've been exposed. They were not able to damage this military operation. I've informed millions and millions of you about this internal threat. The effort to hijack this MAGA movement, the conservative movement. You'll notice when President Trump says peace through strength, that's Reagan too. When he talks about make America great again, that's Reagan too. I'm Reagan and Trump. Tarleton was never around. These other guys were never around. But whether they're around or not, their exploitation is unacceptable. They don't represent the forgotten man, blue-collar people, working Americans, electricians, plumbers, cops, firefighters. What have they done for you? What have they said about you? When we return, I want to focus in on this guy who wants to be mayor of New York City and why it is a national concern, grave concern. And no, media, not because he's Muslim. It's because he's an Islamist who hates America and hates Jews. You know, media, you've been giving an awful lot of support to people like that. You're highly contemptible and disgusting. The Hamas media, the Al Jazeera media. No, you don't get to call us names. We call you names. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We have a great guest on hour 3, our buddy Byron Donalds. Now, in the context of talking about this America-hating, Jew-hating Islamist who's getting the Democrat Party nomination for mayor of New York City, which has the largest concentration of Jews on the face of the earth. Think about that. And we'll get into where he stands and what he really is. Just know this. Global intifada, Global intifada. Intifada is a war, terrorism war against the Jews. He said he has supported it. He said it's recently 2023, and the other day he said, look, that's just a rallying cry. It doesn't really mean anything. It means a lot. Intifada 1, Intifada 2 resulted in the murder of hundreds and hundreds of Jews, blowing up school buses, blowing up pizza parlors in Israel. And this guy blows it off. As a student, he led the chapter, he created the chapter and then led it of Students for Justice in Palestine, which, as you know, is a Hamas front group. He's campaigned for BDS, which is a war on Israel's economy, trying to persuade countries, institutions, our states, colleges and universities, other businesses, to cut off all commercial dealings, financial dealings with the state of Israel, to bankrupt it. This is the guy who wants to be mayor. But before we get into that, I want to lay the context for this. This is very, very important. As I've said here many times, and as I've written many times, Marxism and Americanism are incompatible. What I've also said here many times, and I've written, is that Islamism and Americanism are incompatible. Now, what do I mean by that? Is that because I hate Muslims? Has nothing to do with that. Nothing whatsoever. But you got to be able to speak the truth. You know, you got to be able to speak the truth, whether it's Carlson or Bannon or the rest of them, and you got to be able to speak the truth about this. This is life and death stuff. As an example, the regime that runs Iran is not going to stop. And there's only so much a president can do in his term. We took out their nukes. The prime minister defeated them militarily. But they're not going to stop. Why? Because they are zealots. They are fanatics. They're throwbacks to the 7th century. Let me explain. First, let's talk about ourselves. I think this is important. This is a little cerebral, and that's important. I like to get back to cerebral. We're going to get out of the sewer now. We're going to talk Mark talk. You and I, we believe God is the sovereign. I don't care if you're an atheist or an agnostic. You don't have to believe that. But you benefit from it. And I'll explain that in a minute, too. The people in this country benefit from the Judeo-Christian belief system, whether they are Jewish or Christian or not. You don't have to be a Jew. You don't have to be a Christian. But you benefit from the Judeo-Christian value, belief, principle system. You also benefit from the Enlightenment. From the Enlightenment. Now, this is all in my new book, by the way, On Power. In one section of it. It's not the whole thing. But I want you to hear me out, because this affects what's going on right now in New York and the whole country and Iran and all the rest of it. We believe God is the sovereign. Read your Declaration of Independence. You don't even have to open the Bible. Read your Declaration of Independence. Natural law, natural rights, unalienable rights, universal truths. Where does all that come from? It doesn't come from man. Your founders in 1776 issued a Declaration of Independence. In essence, a declaration of war against the most powerful military on the face of the earth, the British. And they wanted to make it clear to the whole world. Why? Why? They are going to fight the most powerful military on the face of the earth. It was almost a forever war, you know. It went on for 7 years, 8 years. But that aside. And what did they cite? Among other things. The core of it was, we have unalienable rights. We have the right to be free. We have the right to representative government. There's natural law, natural rights, unalienable rights that no man, no government can give or take. The sovereign does. Okay, you with me right now? Now look, people can preach religion a hell of a lot better than I can. I'm not preaching religion. I'm preaching your history. Whether you like it or not, and most of you do. God is the sovereign. That's what the people who wrote the Declaration believed. That's what the people who fought for your freedom in your country believed. Hence, God's children. When mere mortals are making a government, God's children are the sovereign. The children of God, who he created, are the sovereign. Because he says so. You're the sovereign. Not a man-made government, not a Politburo, not a dictator. You're the sovereign. Okay? Now, what did the founders do? Well, we know they believed in that. That's the Declaration. And then they write this Constitution, right? Stick with me. I'm going to be doing this all hour. It's very, very important. And again, it's all in my book on power. If you like what I'm talking about, you find it intriguing and compelling, get the book, because it's explained in much more detail in a book. But let me continue. This is just part of the book. And it relates to everything, including this friggin' nominee. Stick with me. The Constitution. Where did they get this stuff about representative government? Now, that's not in the Bible. That's not in the Torah. Consensual government. Where does that come from? That you have to divide power. Separation of powers. That you can't have an overbearing, centralized government that lords over you. Where do they get this stuff from? The Enlightenment. From John Locke, from Montesquieu, and others. Originally Aristotle. Among the Romans, Cicero. Many. But your framers of the Constitution were focused on Locke and Montesquieu. Montesquieu's mentioned multiple times in the Federalist Paper. Now, how do we know they relied on all of this? Because they tell us. I include the letter. Thomas Jefferson was asked. He was accused. He said, you didn't come up with all these ideas, Jefferson. What makes you so great? You didn't come up with all these ideas. In effect, that's what the guy wrote him. And he wrote back, I never said I did. I used the accumulated, agreed upon knowledge that existed in our country. And of course, the Declaration speaks of this God 7 times. The Creator, Providence, so forth. And then he cites Aristotle and Cicero and Locke and Montesquieu and others. He tells us that's what he relied on when he made the first draft of the Declaration. That's what they embraced, all of them. So what does that tell you? As I explain in my book, America was founded with a fusion of Judeo-Christian values and the Enlightenment. Judeo-Christian values and the Enlightenment. Now let's turn to Marxism. Well, they don't believe in any religious values or faith values. They believe in the elimination of faith. They believe the state is the demigod. They believe the state gives rights, takes rights, gives freedom, take freedom. For the people, of course. The people make all these decisions, and we know that's a lie, don't we? People make no decisions. There's no democratic aspect to it whatsoever. But the proletariat will rise up, destroy the bourgeoisie, destroy the existing vestiges of any prior society, the chains of prior societies, the feudal systems, agrarian systems, all systems, capitalism, The word capitalism was first written by Marx. Marx. We must destroy what exists, even the family relationship, the nuclear family. It must all be destroyed. Faith is nothing more than mysticism, and it stands into the way of progress and modernity and all the rest. That's in the book, too, just explaining it. That's Marxism. And the paradise will be the workers' paradise. Isn't it funny how they always predict what's going to be the end result? You can't predict any end result when you're talking about human behavior. There's so many fallacies in Marxism, and I touch on a number of them in the book. But I don't want to talk about Marxism. I want to talk about Islamism. Now, what does Islamism have in common with Marxism? Why is it that Islamists and Marxists are often the same, or they march together in Columbia, or UCLA, or Harvard, or whatever? Why is it that the Marxists like Bernie Sanders and the Islamists like Tlaib, the Marxists like AOC and the Islamists like Omar and down the list, why is it that they form such a tight alliance? Because of the means that justify the ends. What do the Islamists want? They tell us what they want. I don't have to imply anything. Just because they don't read it at the New York Times or they read it and they don't care, it's irrelevant to me. The Islamists want the same thing the Marxists want, the absolute destruction of the West, the absolute destruction of Judaism and Christianity and Judeo-Christian values. That's what Islamists want. That's why they march together. Now you'll say, well, the Islamists, they believe in God. The Marxists don't. Doesn't matter. It's only if they take the world over that will become relevant. Then they fight among themselves and decide. It's almost like Trotsky and Stalin. Two communists who fight and decide, no, this is the way we rule. No, this is the way that we rule. Not an exact parallel, but good enough. The Islamists and the Marxists at some point, God forbid if we don't exist anymore. And by the way, it's not just Jews and Christians. It's Muslims who don't believe what they believe. It's Hindus, it's Buddhists, it's atheists, it's agnostic. It doesn't matter. You don't conform. You don't conform for Marxism, you die. You don't conform for Islamism, you die. Nothing else matters. One says it's the calling of paradise on earth. The other says it's the only way to serve our God. It's the only way that we can reach our God is destroy all this other stuff that's in between. That's what they write. That's what they say. That's what they believe. That's why the regime in Iran, unless it is completely obliterated, is not going away. And neither are their nuclear ambitions. That's different from saying Trump should do it, the Israelis should do it, the world should do it. I'm not getting into that right now. I'm talking about the mindset. And so, of course, Islamists are the enemy. They're our enemy. They're the enemy of Americanism. They're the enemy of the West. That's what they are. That's why they say death to America, death to Israel. What they mean is death to everybody who disagrees with us. Everybody. And now one of them is the Democrat nominee for mayor of New York. Does that mean he's a terrorist who wants to kill everybody? No, of course not. In order to westernize the revolution, and we know this from, among other things, the 1993 bugging of a hotel room at the Marriott outside the Philadelphia International Airport, where Hamasians met, and they created CARE. And everything they said was taken down. And among other things, it's available, a lot of it for you on the internet, for the New York Times if you want to take a look. And by the way, as a footnote, to call Charlie Kirk a racist makes me sick to my stomach. He and I don't always agree, but he's earnest, okay? He's not a racist. He's not an anti-Semite. Some people are. Some people are, and I've called them out. He's not one of them. That's my 2 cents. And so what they decided to do is sort of Americanize themselves, get people elected to Congress, get people in the media. create CARE, which would claim to be the greatest civil rights, Muslim civil rights organization in America, where they push the agenda to try to take over cities, state governments, local governments, have a big presence in Congress. They play the long game. We do not in the West. We don't play any game. Half the time we don't even know. You know, they're playing football and we're playing bocce. It's like that. So this guy who's the Democrat nominee for the mayor of New York City is both a Marxist and an Islamist. He's a socialist. He's not a socialist. He's a Marxist. Socialism is bad enough. That's an economic theory. It's not an ideological doctrine. He's a Marxist who believes in socialism. And he's an Islamist. He said so and then denied it. He's an anti-Semite. Oh, no, I'm not. Just because I favor BDS, just because I'm opposed to Zionism, which means the state of Israel. That's what it means. Just because I believe in the globalization of the intifada, the globalization of terrorism. No, I don't mean that. It's just a phrase of oppressed people. Now you know. It's in the book On Power. Grab your copy because it's going to be relevant throughout the next 10 years. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. All the Islamist groups, they're not sleeper cells. They're out in the open. All the Islamist individuals in the media, the Marxists in the media, they're not going to push the candidacy of this guy, Zohran Mamdani. If I mispronounced it, tough crap. It's not a name I'm familiar with. Carol Makowitz, who's a fantastic columnist at the New York Post, she quotes Steve Bannon as saying earlier today, quote, "Listen, I've never said anything about Netanyahu doing what he does for his own country. What I'm saying is America first. What happened here is just not acceptable. They're not an ally. And don't ask me on that. Ask President Trump." As she points out, well, let's ask President Trump. He just made the most fulsome, unbelievable defense of Bibi Netanyahu against what they're trying to do to him, because Donald Trump and he have become very close friends, and Donald Trump went through this. And you know what Trump told me one time, Mr. Producer? He's got it worse than I do, Trump said, because he's the prime minister and they're still going after him. He has to show up in court on Monday, for God's sakes. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk.
You're listening to Denali, the great one.
The great one.
And you can call in now, 877-381-3811.
By the way, let's say this. Stick with me. They're trying to diminish the accomplishment that took place. First, we have the isolationists who didn't want the accomplishment to take place. And if they had their way, Iran... Let me even step back. If they had had their way, Israel would never have attacked Iran, because Israel was waiting for the United States to give the word that we would back them in their endeavors. And the president did that. So that's where it really starts, even before we get to the taking out of their nuclear sites. It's just fantastic what this president did. So you can see where the Jew haters, the Israel haters, and truthfully, the fake MAGA, the 6%, 94% of MAGA supported what took place. The 6%ers. So I say, abandon these people, folks. Abandon them. They're crazy. Here's Pete Hegseth at a press conference at the NATO summit today. Cut 3, go.
There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak. Of course, we've all seen plenty of leakers. And what do leakers do? They have agendas. And what do? Do they share the whole information or just the part that they want to introduce? And when they introduce that preliminary report that's deemed to be a low assessment, you know what a low assessment means? Low confidence in the data in that report. And why is there low confidence? Because all of the evidence of what was just bombed by 12 30,000-pound bombs is buried under a mountain, devastated and obliterated. So if you want to make an assessment of what happened at Fordo, you better get a big shovel and go really deep, because Iran's nuclear program is obliterated. And somebody somewhere is trying to leak something to say, oh, with low confidence, we think maybe it's moderate. Those that drop the bombs precisely in the right place know exactly what happened when that exploded. And you know who else knows? Iran. That's why they came to the table right away, because their nuclear capabilities have been set back beyond what they thought were possible because of the courage of a commander-in-chief who led our troops, despite what the fake news wants to say.
Mm-hmm. And the president's there at NATO, and he's actually having to defend or parry with the media that's attacking him. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this country's been in many wars, many military battles and events. We've never had a media like this that roots against us. We've never had a fifth column like this of Democrats who want to impeach a president for doing exactly what he's able to do and doing it beautifully, flawlessly, brilliantly, as well as the isolationists. The same media is celebrating this guy, Zohran Mamdani, or however the hell you pronounce it. You understand what I mean? Your instincts about the media are correct. They covered up for Biden. They covered up the laptop. They hate us. It's not just Trump. He's the point of the spear. They'd love him to go to prison. That's not the point. He represents us. That's why they hate him. If he was one, you remember when it was the Reform Party, the Democrat Party, he was donating here and there. He was doing the deals as a businessman does in many instances. They loved him. Then when he identifies with the Republican Party, that's it. That's the end. He didn't even have to open his mouth. That was it, right there. Honestly, just like Elon Musk. Votes for Obama, he's great. He's doing this, great. We love our Elon. He's terrific. Donations to, he's great. Signs up, joins with Trump, assists big time in the election, runs this Doge, and they're out to literally destroy him and imprison him too. That's what they do. Very well said, Pete. Very well said. Rubio was quite good at this summit, too. Cut 7, Mr. Producer, go.
First of all this stuff about the intelligence, this is what a leaker is telling you the intelligence says. That's the game these people play. They read it, and then they go out and characterize it the way they want it characterized, and they're leakers. This is the game they play. So that's number one. Number two, here's a fact. The conversion facility, which you can't do a nuclear weapon without a conversion facility, we can't even find where it is, where it used to be on the map. You can't even find where it used to be because the whole thing is just blackened out. It's gone. It's wiped out. It's wiped out. Then we dropped 12 of the strongest bombs on the planet right down the hole in 2 places. Everything underneath that mountain is in bad shape. And I refer you to the statement of the IAEA, Mr. Grossi. You know what he said? He said there was Iran, the way it looked the day before the attack, and what their nuclear program looks like now. 2 very different things. They are way behind where they were just 7 days ago. Now, anything in the world can be rebuilt. But now we know where it is, and if they try to rebuild it, we'll have options there as well. But all this leaker stuff, these leakers are professional stabbers. That's what they are. They go out and they read this stuff, and then they tell you what it says against the law, but they characterize it for you in a way that's absolutely false. There's no way Iran comes to the table if somehow nothing had happened. This was complete and total obliteration. They're in bad shape. They are way behind today compared to where they were just 7 days ago because of what the president did.
The Mossad says the same thing. The Mossad's all over that country. I think we've learned that. But these leakers are trying to undermine the great men and women of the military and what they've accomplished because they're trying to destroy Donald Trump. It's not going to work. The American people are patriotic. What the Democrats are doing is not going to work. The American people are patriotic. The isolationists, I have revealed them. I've been the point of the spear. You now know that Tucker Carlson is Chatsworth Catarlson. That's his name. You now know that Steve Bannon is a convicted criminal, a confessed criminal. And if he didn't get a pardon, he would have had to face other charges. So you now know he's pardon me, Bannon. That's who he is. That's who these people are. And if Gates opens his big mouth, I'm going to lay out what he is, too. It's unbelievable. It's in the public record. You can do it yourself, by the way. This Marjorie Trader Greene claims to stand up in principle and all the rest of it. Stabbing the president in the back, claiming she's more consistently principled than the head of MAGA. The hell is she? She's a nobody. A nobody with a low IQ. All right, I promised I posted something. And by the way, Fox isn't telling me to do or not do anything. I do this myself. I post, neither is Westwood One. Neither is Blaze. I'm a big boy. I posted something. I said, look, this lady needs help. She ought to get help. And so I'm going to back off. I actually believe that. I actually believe that. In fact, I'm going to stop calling her Marjorie Trader Greene. I'm going to call her what she likes to be called. Marjorie, what the hell is it? I don't know. What is it? Marjorie Taylor Greene or MTG? I'm starting to feel really bad for her. It's just too easy, if you know what I mean. So I'm gonna leave her alone. Unless, of course, she pisses me off again, then I'll get right in her face. Fat boy and prep boy, 2 different stories. 2 different stories. They're in the swamp, they're in the sewer. I much prefer to talk more cerebrally with you folks. So we'll do some jabbing and punching here and there, depending on how it goes, depending on how they try and undermine our military, undermine our president, undermine our country, how much grifting they're doing, how many lies they're telling, how much anti-Semitism they're spreading. It'll all depend. But I'd much rather do the kinds of things that I did at the top of this hour. I really would. But I believe my commitment to you and vice versa, we're a big family, that when I see injustices taking place, efforts to rip you off taking place, efforts to lie to you and mislead you taking place, I'm going to stand up to it. Hakeem Jeffries on the Morning Joe. This guy's a real lowlife. Absolute lowlife. Cut 8, go.
But the question, of course, is, was this strike successful in meaningfully pushing back Iran's
nuclear this is just, I can't stand this guy. I honestly can't stand it. But he's not alone. I can't stand any of these guys on the left. First, it's the War Powers Act. Then it's impeachment. But they tamped that down because they thought that would blow up in their face and have a backlash effect. Now it's, was it successful? How do we know it's successful? This is a horrendous political entity, this Democrat Party. Some of you old-timers, you're Democrats, you ought to abandon that party. It's nothing like the party you signed up for. It's nothing. It's filled with these Marxists. It's filled with these Islamists. It's filled with these political whores. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's why I wrote a book, The Democrat Party Hates America. They got many of the retailers very up. We can't put that book on the shelves. No, only books that attack Trump, you know. By the way, the good news is my new book, On Power, it's going to be everywhere. Very excited. You know, Costco put a very strict limit on books. Did you remember I talked about that, Mr. Producer? They're not going to carry many. They're going to carry my book, and they've already increased the order. My book's going to have more books in Costco's than most other books, which don't even appear anymore. I'm just telling you, this is going to take off. I want you to be part of this. I'm very, very anxious that you embrace this, because you're going to love it. I gave you a little feel for it, just a tiny, which you can get at Amazon.com right now, about $24. And let's say 10,000 of you, just 10,000, that's it. There's millions of you out there. 10,000 of you go in there, order the book. That discount will get even bigger, and the more that order. I've seen that discount with my books go to 50%. 50%. This is why I say, don't wait. You're going to wait till the end. Or get the accumulated benefit, Levinites of this audience, of getting a huge discount. I know how their system works. They don't even want me to tell you. I'm telling you. The more pre-orders they get, the greater the discount. This book could wind up costing you, what, $15, depending on how it goes. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. Radio Free America, where real MAGA meets. The Trump Revolution, the Reagan Revolution, the Tea Party Revolution, we're all here together. Most of us are one and the same. That's right. Where my audience is respected. Where truth matters. Where we back our military, especially when it's going into battle. Where we back our commander-in-chief, who's brilliant, historic, iconic. Where we back our allies. We don't try to diminish them and undermine them. Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel and their warriors and their people. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We're going to help our friends in Taiwan, I hope, when that horrific event takes place. We're not going to allow the barbarians from the 7th century to take over the world. We're not going to allow the communist barbarians to take over the world. We have the enemy within that we have to fight and push back, as well as the enemy without. These are tough times for American patriots. And then we have so-called fellow citizens, a tiny 6%. Rather than confront the enemy, even with their verbal attacks, they attack us, you and me. They attack the commander-in-chief. They undermine the United States military right before military action. They're frauds and phonies and freaks. That's what they are. We got a full hour left. And, of course, we have Byron Donalds coming up. We're also going to take your calls near the end of the program, so we'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Great victory in the Middle East by our great president, our great troops, by the great Israeli military and their great prime minister. I tell you what, folks, we should be very proud of what our president has done and how he's done it. Unlike the isolationists, who should forever wear bags over, they should be forced to wear those masks, like the COVID-19 mask, Mr. Producer. Maybe I should contact the CDC and tell them to put these masks on for several reasons. Number one, most of them are not very pretty. And number two, that way they can keep the spittle and the slobbering stupidity to themselves. Now, they have to make a special mask for Bannon, one that fits a horse, something like that. Big boy over there, big boy. I told you he looks like Rosie O'Donnell or the guy on Deliverance. We still haven't gotten his name, Rich. Can't you Google their names? Give me their names. I'll tell you which one. Just tell me Beatty, I think his name is. Beatty. Ned Beatty. He's the Ned Beatty character in Deliverance. And I think Catarleson is the character, that kid on the bridge. Sitting there, the weird-looking one. I used to call him Joe Scarborough, but you know what? Not anymore, Joe. That's not you. That's Catarleson, sitting on the bridge, sort of staring into space. You get my drift. Now, I want to play for you Joy Reid, not to punish you. Some of you are eating dinner. Some of you are driving home. I don't want you to have an accident. She is a disgusting disgrace, another hate America leftist, and there are a lot of them. And most of them are on television or lead the Democrat Party. And tell me if she doesn't sound like some of the isolationist boys in our ranks, although they're not in my rank, I can tell you that. Listen carefully. Cut 10, go.
Joe Biden is the same president who has allowed Israel in an unrestrained manner to slaughter Palestinians in Gaza. So I'm not sure that Joe Biden is who I'm looking at. I'm not sure Joe Biden is who I'm going to for the moral authority here. The moral authority here. And the bottom line
First of all, I want to
is,
thank CNN for speaking up and telling the truth. Who said what? You don't even know. She should have gotten it verbally right there and then. Her hate speech, her Jew hatred, when she was a blogger, she trashed gay people, and this has never left her. When you're a bigot, it sticks with you, doesn't it, Joy? You never hear about bigots who reform themselves, do you, Bannon? You just don't. Do you, Catarleson? Conga line of bigots. Go ahead.
that we know that Iran did not have nuclear weapons is that if they had nuclear weapons, Israel would not attack them. The reason they're trying to get nukes is probably Saudi Arabia.
Who is this idiot? Who is this? I mean, seriously, who is this person? Is she Chatsworth Catarleson in drag? What is this? What is this? Sick. Again, this is a celebratory moment for our military, for our commander-in-chief, for our country. But no. Can you imagine if this didn't go right? Can you imagine what these people would be saying? Can you imagine what the Catarlsons and the, pardon me, Bannons would say? And the other Congolina morons? Can you imagine what the Democrats would say and the media would say? This was flawless. This was perfect. We've never seen anything like this. Consider the size of these bombers. Consider the size of these bombs. Consider how much they had to fly. Consider what they did, and they flew back. Nothing happened to anybody. Except the enemy, of course, but we want things to happen to them. But you get my point. And listen to all this criticism. Well, it's the War Powers Act. Well, we got to impeach him. Well, they didn't really hit anything. Well, it's the Jews' fault. I mean, listen to this stuff. Go ahead.
At them is because an expansionist power in their region keeps threatening them and actually
Mr.
bomb
Producer,
them.
I want you to invite Joy Reid on the program. Do it as politely as you can, okay? Just say, I want to have a discussion about what President Trump did in Israel and Iran. I hope she's not the kind of coward that Kobe Hall is, the head muckety-muck under Dan Abrams over at Mediocrite. You can't miss Dan Abrams. He has a squirrel glued to his head. These guys that wear this stuff, they think you don't know. It's like, oh, he's not bald. But anyway, he's the Jerry Springer of cable, and he's the yellow journalist of the entrails of the original media, Mediocrite, with their headlines and so forth. Over there, Drudge. Did you see Drudge? Oh, yeah, very busy. Very busy. I don't think Drudge is around anymore. I really don't. I think he's in hiding and he's never coming out. I think he eats peanut butter and jelly sandwiches 3 days a week. What do you think of that, Rich? Maybe some white wine. White wine and a peanut butter and jelly. That's about Drudge's speed, I think. Something like that. Oh, yeah. Let's go to... I don't want to play any more Joy Reid. I can't stand the woman, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, Mark Rutte is the NATO Secretary General. And listen to this. Cut 12, go.
I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other.
Oh, you're right. Keep it going. Yep.
They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
This is the funny part. He said, then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language to get them to stop. That's the Secretary General of NATO. I'm laughing because there was a reporter who I was watching this who later asked, do you have respect for these NATO countries? And Trump's looking at, what are with these a-holes, these phony reports? Do you have respect? I mean, they're calling you daddy. Do you treat them as children? When he used daddy, it had nothing to do with NATO. And in the back, there's Rubio cracking up. He's cracking up. Because everyone, these reports, they're so negative, aren't they? You don't get any positive questions. I have positive questions. How long did the pilots train for this mission? That's something interesting, isn't it, Mr. Producer? You know, something of that sort. How long have these kinds of bombers been in production? Or the bombs themselves. You know, you won't be giving up national security secrets, but they're interesting questions. I mean, I've got scores of them. Rather than, we get this report, there's a leak that you didn't hit your target. Now, let me ask you this. How do you miss your target with bombs this powerful? It would be hard. I don't mean the precision nature of it. That's hard. But it seems to me, and I could be wrong, even if you hit around the target, you're talking about 30,000 pounds of explosive, Rich. You have to have these special bombers outfitted, the B-2 stealth bombers, to carry them. You can't even put them on B-52s, which ought to all be replaced. They're too old, but nonetheless. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what I'm amazed at, America? I'm always amazed at this. All this stuff going on this week, all this stuff going on last week, the president gets on his plane, flies all the way to NATO, meets with these guys and gals. His press is flying all the way back. She'll probably be back in an hour or so, based on what I'm looking at. How does he keep this pace, Rich? Seriously. He has more events for tomorrow? I don't know. I mean, when you compare this, and Biden was not active for 40% of the time. The 60% of the time they said he was active, he wasn't active. It's incredible to me. What's he, 78 years old? Something like that? I mean, I don't know how you do it when you're 50 years old. It's crazy. Well, we're here with our friend Byron Donalds. Byron, how are you, sir?
Mark, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. It's good to hear your voice. Been a little while. Now, couple of things here. What's with this Democrat nomination in New York, this guy? And you're from New York originally, so I'm asking you, Zohran Mamdani, what the hell is it? Help me with this, Byron. I can't even pronounce his name.
I can't help you either. Nobody knew who he was until last night.
Mamdani, all right, good for you, Mr. Producer. Did you vote for him? No, of course not. All right, well, there you go. Anyway, Byron, he's an Islamist. He's a Marxist. He helped found these students for whatever it is in Palestine. He's BDS. He's talking about having government-run supermarkets, free public transportation. It's going on and on and on. How do people vote for somebody like this?
First, Mark, I don't know what's going on in the Democrat Party. I don't think they know what's going on in that party. But these guys are committed to the most insane policies that do not work, that have been proven economically they cannot work. But they just promote them loudly, and they yell loudly about how they're going to fix everything. I think New Yorkers are just as frustrated about everything else. But as I was talking to a couple of friends today, and I said, they elected a guy to fix affordability when it's the Democrat Party that created the affordability crisis because they overspend, they tax too much, they overregulate, prices go up on everybody, and they think that more regulation is going to solve the thing that they already did. So Biden broke it. Kamala didn't know what she was doing. AOC loves it, and Mamdani is now the Democrat nominee. So if this is the way the Democrats are going to go, they're going to continue to lose. I'm not sure about New York, but around the country, that's not going to fly.
I think you're right, but let's think about New York City. I mean, it's probably, and I'm not putting down any other cities. I love my home city of Philadelphia, but it's probably the most important city financially and in many respects, other respects. And the idea that you would have an Islamist Marxist who's as radical as hell, who's repeating the language of terrorists. I'm not saying he's a terrorist, but he's repeating the language of them, this global intifada. And then he doubles down. He says, no, that's just a statement of people who want to be free. It doesn't mean it. No, we know what it means. The first intifada, the second intifada. I'm just thinking out loud. And he wants to massively increase taxes. So you're going to lose a corporate base. You're not going to be able to even hire enough people to fill the police department, the NYPD, or the fire department. They're not going to want to work for a kook like this. The teachers' unions and others are going to run wild, shaking them down for a fortune. Will be more than happy to oblige. I just think you're going to see a massive depopulation of New York and a repopulation of New York with individuals who share his ideology from all over the country, if not all over the world. I think if he's elected, it's going to destroy the city once and for all. You don't have to agree with me, but that's my view.
No, I agree with you. I'll tell you exactly what I think. I think you're absolutely right on this. I think it's really unfortunate to hardworking New Yorkers who just want common sense, and they just want common sense policies to reign so they can live their lives. It's really a detriment to them. The people who are going to continue to leave New York, they're coming to Florida, Mark. They're going to continue to do that. They're going to go to Texas. They're going to Tennessee. They're looking at this guy and saying, I just can't anymore. We are done. And so, a lot of the reason why people are leaving New York and Chicago and so many of these places and come into places like Florida is because we've had consistent governance over decades. I mean, Governor DeSantis has done a tremendous job in Florida. That's why so many people have moved to Florida, and that's going to continue, Mark. And so we're just going to make sure that we're the best state in the country continuously going into the future. And people come from New York or wherever, they got to know, in Florida, we do business differently. We are conservative. We respect everybody's freedoms and rights. We protect those, but we're a conservative state with guiding principles, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, that's why I love it here. Now, the president really quite miraculously, brilliantly, takes out the Iranian nuclear sites. And look, if he wasn't the commander-in-chief, they'd still be there, and it'd be a massive problem. He's working closely with the Israelis and Bibi Netanyahu. He put out a statement tonight praising the hell out of Netanyahu and condemning what they're... Do you realize, Byron, that Bibi Netanyahu has to go to court on Monday? He's a wartime leader. He has to go to court on Monday to defend his use of cigars. Have you ever heard of anything like this?
No, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. The man is running a country. He's trying to do everything he can to protect Israeli citizens and, frankly, be a bulwark against the insane, radical, anti-Semitic left. And so to be hauled into court over something so stupid, look, in this business, Mark, you understand that the craziness comes from any corner. You just kind of have to always be ready. But I think the thing that we've seen out of Bibi is he's not going to be deterred from leading Israel. He's not going to be deterred on doing what he believes is the right thing to do in the interest of the Israeli people. And really, he's the prime minister for a time such as this. So, Bibi, don't let the haters get you down. Keep going.
And our tremendous president, he's historic, he's iconic, and he did something these other presidents wouldn't do. Carter brought in the enemy in Iran, and he one after another after that. George Bush, Clinton, you have Obama, you have Biden. They all said no nuclear weapons, and not one of them lifted a finger to actually stop it. And Trump comes in and he sees, Biden funded all this. He's muscled them up. I can't let look, I'll negotiate, but there's some point at which I got to do something about it. Now, there's a lot of criticism of this from the Democrat Party, including the impeachment ring over there, which is a big ring of morons. But nonetheless, Hakeem Jeffries tonight says we don't have the evidence that it did what it's supposed to do. Anything to diminish this man, but it's not going to work, is it?
No, it's not. And look, President Trump made the absolute right call, and you are correct. So many presidents before him have dithered on this issue with nuclear Iran. They were not doing the right thing. You had the Obama administration and the Biden administration, which empowered this Robert Malley, this left-wing nut. They empowered him to make United States policy with Iran. That was insane policy, and it only allowed the regime to get further down this road. So Donald Trump, listen, for people who were saying, we're getting dragged into another conflict, the president's been clear on this thing for a while. No nukes in Iran, but we're not putting boots on the ground. And I firmly support that. He made the right call, making sure our bombers were in the air to take out those sites. The world is safer today as a result. And to some of my colleagues who believe that America first means that you cannot engage anywhere around the world, then they have forgotten the lessons when America ignores radicalism like the Iranian regime. The lessons are clear in history. That is we're going to go inject constitutional democracy in Iran. I don't agree with that. But you have to look this evil in the face and say, you are not going to have weapons that can literally obliterate Tel Aviv at a moment's notice. We're not going to let it happen. The president made the right call. The results have been great. And Mark, and you've seen this. We've been warned about the Russians and the Chinese. They haven't done anything.
Nothing.
And they won't.
Byron, stick with me. I want to ask you, are we ever going to get a budget and tax cut out of the Senate? What the hell's going on over there? I want to ask you about that. We'll be right back.
Mark, but then the thunder on the right. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
We're here with Byron Donalds. Byron, remind people what area of Florida you represent.
I represent Naples, Fort Myers, Marco Island, Sanibel, Captiva Islands.
Those are hot areas, aren't they? I don't mean weather hot. I mean they're hot areas for people to live in.
100%. We get people moving there all the time. It's a great place to live.
And from these last hurricanes, are they doing a little better, building back okay, or at least, Yeah,
in Southwest Florida, we've kind of recovered from Ian. Helene and Milton did some water damage to our barrier islands, but it's just a process. You start moving further up, where they really got hit, like a Cedar Key. They really got hit by Helene and Milton, Port Charlotte area. Still trying to recover, but it's just a process. The biggest thing, Mark, is I'm glad the president's actually taken a strong look at FEMA, because FEMA's just been a disaster. Mm-hmm. Like, people think FEMA is this agency that comes in and helps everybody. It's a bureaucratic mess, and it's not been working. It's slow. And so President Trump, to his credit, being the commander-in-chief and being a leader, is saying enough is enough. We're going to fix this thing once and for all. So happy to see what his reforms look like. So we got to be able to help people when the chips are down. That's what America's about.
Now, what's going on in the Senate? The Speaker seems a little frustrated. They seem to be wanting to kind of mess around with everything, and he's warning, look, I could barely put a majority together here. You mess around with this too much, I can't get a majority in the House, right?
Yeah, that's a real thing, and I think the Senate is, typical of the upper chamber. They think they know best. So they're trying to, make some changes in there, doing their stuff, make some changes to tax policy. They really have expanded this Green New Deal stuff, and so they have actually made hold on longer.
What?
Mark, I'm telling you, the House provision was going to sunset the terrible pieces of those Green New Deal tax credits that Biden put in. We were sunsetting them in 2028. The Senate's perversion actually extends them to 2030, past President Trump's presidency. And so in the House, you do have House members who are saying, this is nuts. Why would we do that? We can't do that to the grid. It's unreliable energy. It's going to make it harder to power America into the future. But that's in the Senate's version as it stands today. Our hope is that they take the House's version when it comes to sunsetting those Green New Deal tax credits. The president wants it out. He tweeted that the other day. President Trump is saying, no, get rid of it. It's a scam. And he's right.
Unbelievable. I didn't even know that was going on. I'm glad you told us. I'm sure other shenanigans are going on,
in the
too.
Background.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's why it's going to take us a minute to finish this thing. I think we can get it done, though, to be honest with you. Will we hit July 4th? I hope so. I think we should get that done by then. But the Senate has the bill right now. We'll see what they come up with over the next couple of days.
Problem is, if they don't get these tax cuts in place soon so they resonate throughout the economy, you got to make sure they resonate by the time the midterms are coming, It's important.
I agree. I think we're going to get tax done. I think we're going to get it all done definitely before August. So to compare it, when we originally did Tax Cut and Jobs Act under the first Trump administration, that passed in December before the next midterm year.
Oh, wow.
It's not going to wait that long. We'll be definitely done, I'll say, sometime in July. I think maybe a week or two into July we'll be done. The bigger thing is Tom Homan and Kristi Noem, they need the resources for the deportation force. That's in the bill. We have to get them that money immediately. They need those resources so the president can actually keep his promise to the American people, not just securing the border, but sending people home who need to be out of the country.
Mm-hmm. My understanding, there's only 5,000 full-time in ICE, and this would add another 10,000. So that's, what is that, a 200% increase, something like that?
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not a math guy. You're a math guy.
Yeah, you did pretty good on the fly. That was good. But no, we need the bodies. We need the bed space. It's, deporting a lot of people is a logistical operation, and logistical operations take resources. And so we have a responsibility to deliver. That's also in the one big beautiful bill. We need to get that to the president's desk so he can fulfill his mandate that was given to him by the American people.
Well, Byron, our best to your family, your lovely wife, your 2 kids. From my wife as well. You're a good man. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you, my friend. Take it easy.
You too. Take care of yourself. We're not getting into any political races till later. He didn't ask, but there's a lot of people who do. It's too early for me to do that, or we'll get a flood of people in. We'll deal with these things when we need to, right, Mr. Producer? It's too early anyway. It's just too early. But he's a very good man. He's an excellent congressman. See See the callers here. I got to pull it up. Hello. Boy, this thing is slow today. Okay. Click there, Mr. Producer. And let's see what we have. What do we have? Why is this? Oh, here we go. All right, let's try it now. Sorry, folks. Let us go to... let's go to Sandra. Gutenberg, New Jersey. How are you, Sandra?
Oh, I'm so glad you picked me. I'm doing okay. I just heard Rudy say on TV that New York is facing a big emergency. That's the word he used, if this man, Mamdani, wins. And I wanted to call you tonight to ask you your opinion about something that happened. My friend called me. She lives in the city. I live in New Jersey, but she lives in the city in one of the high-rises. And she said that Mamdani's staff, they went into her building with like authority, like telling the concierge, we are authorized to go to these apartments, you know, and it was all Jewish names on the list.
And do what?
We are and give flyers to these people, slip them under their doors. Now, that's not allowed, Mark, in any building to do anything like that. But it just made me feel, you know, resist new beginnings, resist old beginnings.
Oh yeah, this smells like the Marxist police state. When you want to do this to a city or a state or a country, basically bleed the liberty out of the environment there. Whether it's businesses, whether it's home ownership, whether it's apartments or whatever it is, you have a pretty big iron fist. You really do. And these people are going to get a big head, and they're going to do all the worst things. This guy has to be defeated. I mean, he has to be defeated at the polls. Cuomo apparently didn't run much of a campaign. They call it a Rose Garden campaign, where you just stand there and hope everybody comes out. I was watching him make some comments during the campaign. You fall asleep. They got to, you know, he thought this was going to be handed to him. And so this guy comes from nowhere. They're working the streets. You know, AOC is a good commie. She knows how to work the streets. They know the slogans to use, the words to use. They get young people all worked up because in primaries, it's a matter of turnout. That's the issue. Even more than a general election, it's turnout. That's how you get the nomination. One saving grace, which is surprising since I don't like the voting system there, you've got all these independent lines. You got our buddy Curtis Sliwa, who can run as a Republican. You'll have others who are running on others. You got the current mayors running as an independent and so forth and so on. The issue is they got to get behind somebody. Otherwise, this jerk's going to slip in. And whether he gets 40% of the vote or 60% of the vote, if he slips in, he's the mayor. And I want the people of New York to understand something, the effect that this is going to have in every single community, every single one. And I want America to understand. This will be viewed as the future. This will be viewed as precedent for more of this to take place in your states and your cities. So, I mean, this is a big problem. I've already seen the Islamists in the media. They're very giddy. They're interviewing him or they're talking about him. They see a great opportunity here. Groups like CARE, which is a Hamas front group, Students for Justice in Palestine, all the usual Islamist front organizations. They're going to be working very, very hard all over the country, maybe internationally, to get this load elected. So it's a big deal. Thank you for your call. I really appreciate it, Sandra. Very good. Let's see. Let's continue. David, Staten Island. New York's wide awake. Staten Island, New York. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, howdy, Mark. Many years ago, in 1979, when the Shah of Iran was being kicked out, not only did I say Russia and Iran working together, I also predicted, which I heard recently, the son of the Shah may be coming back if they could change regime. I am ever so praying for that.
Doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me in the least, as long as it's not these Islamist regimes. And you know what's happening today and tonight in Iran, sir? They're executing people, and they're having mass roundup people and imprisoning them. So I think they fear for their future, and they're going to try and do everything they can to make sure they don't lose it. And so the truly hideous nature of this genocidal, monstrous regime its tentacles are still in play. It's still going on. The Persian people are being abused like hell.
There's something else I should tell you. All those rockets shot over Israel could have been nukes. Iran is very serious about destroying everything that they can't have till they get what they want. They're not going to give up.
No, they're not going to give up. There's absolutely no question about it. That regime is to be destroyed by somebody one day or another, one way or another. People say, well, that's regime change. Yes, it is. Yes, when we destroyed the Third Reich, that was regime change. When we kicked the British out of the Americas, that was regime change. They use these names and they went to, oh my God, it's going to be Iraq all over again. Has nothing to do with Iraq. But they don't care. They undermine our country. They undermined our president. They undermined our troops, and we're not going to forget. All right. We appreciate your call, Dave. Take care of yourself. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, I'm disappointed in myself, Mr. Producer. So I went and I bought some spaghetti and meatballs from a nice restaurant. And it's sitting there awaiting me, Mr. Producer. What did I forget? I can't eat cheese. I'm lactose intolerant. I forgot Italian bread. How the hell do you eat it? Now, you're Italian. Do you eat spaghetti and meatballs without Italian bread? Nobody does. Well, it drives me nuts right now. I'm like, wait a minute. I actually got the spaghetti and meatballs to eat the bread. You know what I'm saying? Because I love bread. Bread's like cake to me, especially Italian bread. Oh, yeah. I think my favorite food is Italian food, actually. I love Chinese food, but like once every 10 days. But Italian food, I could eat 3 days a week. Plus, when I go to the Italian restaurant, I'm just being, and these people, they recognize me. The ethnicity of the Italians is almost like Jews, the way I grew up, you know? It's like, hey, you want more? Hey, what about this? And this is how I grew up, you know what I mean? You sure you don't want more? Yeah, sure. But I kind of miss that. Okay. Let me take a call here, too, if we can. Let's see here. Let us go to Rovi. San Diego, California, Sirius XM satellite. Yes, Rovi.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Yes.
So first of all, just a quick thanks to President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu for the amazing job they did in really pushing back Iran's nuclear program.
Mm-hmm.
But I just a quick point is that Iran says they saved most of the 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, and they may have a number of centrifuges left, and therefore the threat still persists even in the short term. So therefore,
well, it might, but moving that material is not as easy as it sounds. You don't just throw it in trucks,
right?
And moving centrifuges is a very complicated task. So there may be some of that. There may be hidden sites that are unknown and so forth, and at some point they may have to be dealt with. But I can tell you, if they're doing a full-blown nuclear program and missiles, they're not going to be able to do that. I don't think, certainly not now, with a lot more ability to do so, because a lot of the sites, they're interactive. They're not necessarily repetitive. One site does this, one site does that, and effectively it's an assembly line of things that have to be done, and it's been badly disrupted. So even if you have nuclear material, there's not necessarily anything you can do with it. It just depends on how it's been processed. I'm no expert. And I'm not bringing an expert on, because if I do, it'll take an hour and a half and your eyes will roll over. Thank you, Rovi. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our men and women, our truckers, too, and the men and women in Ukraine and Israel, and the president. A special salute. God bless him. Man, does he take more crap and does he give it back? I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.